Our main character, a famous gym trainer, faced financial struggles due to COVID-19. To adapt, he turned to online streaming. But one fateful day, after a streaming session, he found himself transported to the mysterious world of Murim. Follow his journey as he uses modern training techniques to become the greatest martial artist in this new world. Before we continue, did you know that 99% of you are not subscribed to the channel? Please help me reach 1,000 subscribers by hitting that subscribe button. Our tale unfolds in a big fitness center in Gangnam, Seoul, where there's a small office for staff. Here, our main character, Choi Kang-hyuk, greets everyone tuning into his channel, Gym Rat TV. He points the camera at his meal and announces that, thanks to viewer requests, he's doing a mukbang with the popular honey chicken and beer combo. He dives into the food, putting on a show of enjoying every bite for his audience. Choi Kang-hyuk wasn't always a fitness enthusiast, though. It was a serious injury that changed him. He got hurt badly during a special forces mission, and if he hadn't worked hard to strengthen his muscles, he might have had trouble walking. Kang-hyuk went through tough physical therapy and chiropractic sessions to get better. Once he recovered, he got into different workouts like yoga and Pilates and learned a lot about eating right. He ended up becoming the country's top fitness trainer, so it's surprising to see him streaming a mukbang. Well, the pandemic shook things up. To keep his gyms running, Kang-hyuk had to try streaming. But the money wasn't enough to cover the costs of 5 gyms. After getting emotional about his financial struggles, he said goodbye to his viewers, asking them to subscribe and hit the notification bell. After he made sure the camera was off, his face changed, showing worry about what's to come. He realized he'd had a lot of fried chicken and beer, loads of calories, and knew it would be hard to exercise right away because of the alcohol. Then he remembered what the doctor said about his hair falling out from stress, which shocked him. The doctor explained that even though Kang-hyuk looked healthy, his body was almost breaking down from too much stress. He warned that Kang-hyuk needed to ease up on work or he might go bald. Kang-hyuk couldn't believe it, afraid that being bald would mean he'd be alone. The doctor gave him some medicine and stressed the importance of reducing stress and resting. Kang-hyuk agreed, though reluctantly. Now, lying on the floor, he felt lost and overwhelmed. Work and exercise had always been everything to him, and now he didn't know what to do without them. Then he remembered something and grabbed his phone. As he scrolled through it, he found what he was searching for. In the middle of his busy life, he had forgotten how much he loved reading martial arts novels as a kid. Growing up poor with his grandparents, borrowing these novels from the local bookstore was a cherished memory. He remembered his grandpa scolding him for spending too much time at the bookstore. Finding out that an author named Gadong had written the books he loved as a kid, Absolute Demon's Return and Unorthodox Factions Tyranny, made him smile. Then he saw a new series called Shaolin and Monk Chronicles by someone named Murim Gadong and clicked on it out of curiosity. The story introduced Mu Jin, who goes to the Shaolin Temple to become a martial artist. Interested, Kang-ho scrolled through the chapters, thinking about whether to read it. He started reading and found the novel really captivating, which helped him relax, a feeling he hadn't had since he was a child. As he reminisced, sleepiness washed over him, and he fell to the ground, his phone beside him. Suddenly, his phone lit up, and he heard someone calling him Mu Jin, telling him to hurry to morning exercise. Surprised, he got up, thinking about the morning workout, only to find a bald man shouting that they were going to be late and get yelled at. He called the bald man Kid and wondered how he got into his house and why he had shaved his head like that. The kid replied, asking why he was being called Kid when he was older and bigger. Kang-hyuk, confused, stood up and argued, saying he was 180 centimeters tall, with 8 to 10% body fat, weighing 90 kilograms, and able to lift 650 kilograms per rep. He asked the child if he was seeing things correctly and glanced around, confused about how the child had gotten into his house. When he looked around the room, his confusion grew. He touched his head and realized he was bald too, which made him scream in horror and surprise. He demanded to know what was wrong with his hair and where he was, criticizing the rundown condition of the house. Then it hit him that the child had called him Mu Jin, the name of the main character from the novel he had just read. He stared at his hands in disbelief, wondering why he was Mujin and where he was. What troubled him most was that his muscles seemed to have vanished. Since he had just fallen asleep after reading, he convinced himself it was all a dream, as he often had vivid dreams influenced by the books he read. However, the child insisted they were running late and urged him to hurry, which Kang Hyuk reluctantly agreed to, still finding the child oddly charming. As they left the room and hurried along, Kang Hyuk decided that since it was just a dream, he might as well enjoy the experience. When they arrived, their teacher demanded to know why they were late for the first part of the day and announced that they needed a lesson. The teacher then instructed them to take their positions for training. The child next to him apologized, but Kang Hyuk just stared at their teacher, amazed at how real the dream felt. The teacher said they'd start with horse stances, which confused Kang Hyuk. He thought they meant squatting. Hearing others in pain, he looked around and saw them struggling with the stance, trying their best even though it was clearly painful. Kang Hyuk wondered what they were doing and knew they'd hurt their knees if they kept it up. As Kang Hyuk did rehab training, he realized how important lower body and core exercises were. Some trainers only focused on upper body workouts, missing the point of a balanced routine. Seeing other students' stances were too wide and hurting their posture, Kang Hyuk knew this wasn't right for real gym fans. The teacher stressed a strong lower body for martial arts, which puzzled Kang Hyuk. Why encourage stances that might harm them? The teacher said without a strong lower body, they couldn't balance well for punches or staff techniques. Kang Hyuk questioned what the teacher was teaching these students with bad form. Kang Hyuk couldn't stay quiet any longer. He yelled at the instructors, saying they didn't know anything about proper exercise, shocking everyone into silence and getting stares of disbelief. His friend quietly asked what was going on, while the teacher, clearly angry, demanded to know how he dared to disrupt the training like that. The other adults accused him of just making excuses because he found the training tough, wondering if this was how a Shaolin student should behave. One man firmly told him to get into the right position immediately. Even though he felt a lot of energy from their yelling, Kang Hyuk wondered if he felt that way because he thought he was in a martial arts story. But he decided to stand his ground, saying he was just pointing out a mistake. Remembering his time dealing with difficult gym members, he assured himself he wouldn't be intimidated, as this was way easier in comparison. One of the men, clearly annoyed, reminded him that he was a Shaolin student and asked if he was saying Shaolin training was flawed. Caught off guard by the lifelike quality of his dream, Kang Hyuk decided to go along with it, mimicking the way martial artists talk. He said that sticking with their current training approach might cause knee injuries and long-term pain. But the guy brushed it off, saying it sounded like an excuse from someone weak. This left Kang Hyuk puzzled. He asked the guy if martial arts weren't supposed to make both body and mind stronger, pointing out that saying it's not for the weak doesn't make sense. The guy struggled to reply, but someone else jumped in, saying that Shaolin's training was special because it focused on self-improvement and reaching enlightenment. Kang Hyuk agreed, then asked if that meant only strong people could reach enlightenment at Shaolin. The guy stumbled over his words, saying that wasn't what he meant. He got louder, saying their tough physical training was meant to toughen their minds because they naturally crave comfort and can have bad thoughts when times get tough. He said that their training was meant to toughen their minds ahead of tough times. Kang Hyuk disagreed, saying such mental prep was only for young folks, which puzzled everyone. He pushed further, asking if they thought it was okay to mess up their bodies when young, as long as it made their minds strong, suggesting that it was fine to suffer physically in old age for mental strength gained in youth. Then he questioned whether enduring hardship in youth guaranteed wisdom later on. This got the students whispering and the adults panicking. Kang Hyuk boldly pointed at an older monk and asked how much suffering he had gone through, yet still struggled with reaching enlightenment. This bold statement surprised everyone, and one guy thought Kang Hyuk was a daring young fellow for challenging Hye Young, a well-respected top student. Hye Young took a deep breath and let out a scream so loud that everyone had to cover their ears because of its power. Even Kang Hyuk was shocked by the intensity coming from a top student. After the yelling stopped, Hye Young calmly approached Kang Hyuk and talked to him. He mentioned he'd heard what Kang Hyuk said before and reiterated what another disciple had said, that martial arts in their Buddhist group were mainly for self-improvement, a way to reach enlightenment. But he pointed out their martial arts had a different goal. Kang Hyuk wasn't convinced. He questioned if it was worth risking their health just to protect others. Hye-young, visibly irritated and worried about Kang Hyuk's influence, thought to himself that the elders wouldn't punish a new monk like him directly. Hye-young then challenged Kang Hyuk. He suggested if Kang Hyuk thought their training was wrong, he should prove it. Kang Hyuk stuttered, asking how he could do that. Hye-young replied that if Kang Hyuk thought he knew the right way to train, he should show it by defeating those who trained in Shaolin methods. Kang Hyuk asked who he would fight and if he didn't have to fight Hye-young himself. Hye-young said it would be fair for Kang Hyuk to fight someone who started training at the same time as him. He called over another monk named Mu-gung. Hye-young said that if Kang Hyuk's ideas were right, he'd have a week from that day to train as he wanted. Then he'd spar with Mu-gung. Kang Hyuk couldn't help but notice the big difference in their sizes and wondered if Hye-young really thought it was a fair fight. He doubted Hye-young's fairness, thinking it was just a way to shut him up by putting him against a new guy. He thought Hye-young was a terrible senior. Still, Hye-young seemed pleased with himself, thinking he'd cornered Kang Hyuk. But Kang Hyuk surprised him by agreeing to the challenge, which left Hye-young briefly surprised. The other students whispered as Mu-gung stared hard at Kang Hyuk, and Hye-young looked angry. Hye-young told Kang Hyuk he'd picked the hard road, then told everyone to get back to training, which they did with nods of respect. Kang Hyuk's buddy came up to him, confused by his choice, and suggested he just say sorry to Hye-young. At that moment, an elder told another student, Mu-yol, to get back in place, and Mu-yol said, okay. Mu-gung and the other students stared angrily at Kang Hyuk, clearly upset by his boldness. Hye-young also shot him an enraged look, reminding him of their upcoming confrontation in a week. A moment later, Kang Ha was panting heavily and sweating profusely, yet he maintained his squat effortlessly. Suddenly, a man angrily called out his name, demanding to know why he was doing different exercises during the training session. Kang Hyuk responded, saying that Hye-young had given him permission and questioned whether the man had authority over Hye-young. Just as the man was about to respond angrily, Hye-young stepped in, reminding him of their agreement to let Mu-jin continue as planned, to which the man reluctantly agreed. Kang Hyuk then turned to the other students with a grin, warning them that their current exercises could harm their knees. He emphasized their youth and asked rhetorically who would be responsible if they injured themselves, stirring anger among the students. Hye-young silently wished Mu-jin would disappear, while Mu-jin jokingly remarked on the pain of their training routine. After 2 hours of intense training since dawn, Kang Hyuk was ready to replenish his energy. He was shocked when he found out that his meal was just rice and veggies. Realizing they were vegetarians, which made sense in a temple but still caught him off guard, he wondered where he'd get his protein. He wasn't pleased with the blandness of his meal and even questioned if he was dreaming because he could smell the food. Despite admitting it smelled good, he grumbled that vegetables alone weren't enough. Feeling frustrated, he even compared it to child abuse. When a monk reminded him to be silent during meals, he kept complaining, arguing that after a tough morning workout, vegetables alone were too tough. The adults scolded him for being rude during mealtime, and one looked like they were about to discipline him. Kang Hyuk, upset and annoyed by their reaction to such a meager meal, couldn't shake the thought of needing protein after intense exercise. He clenched his teeth in defiance, determined not to let it go. Lost in his thoughts about not wasting his morning workout, he was interrupted by someone entering the room and laughing. The grown-ups glanced up, surprised to see it was Hyun-mun, the leader of the hall. Being responsible for meals at Shaolin, Hyun-mun noticed Kang Hyuk looking a bit discontented and mentioned his hunger, offering more food if needed. Kang said he had enough, but Hyun-mun, thinking he was just hungry, kindly offered more side dishes. Then Kang asked if there were any protein supplements or chicken breasts, which shocked everyone with his unusual requests. Stammering, they asked why Kang was acting strangely and even pinched him to check if he was really there, while Kang insisted on needing protein. He stopped abruptly as he caught his reflection in Yol's eyes, realizing how weird he must seem, especially since his fatigue and the smell of food felt so real. Wondering why he hadn't woken up yet, he started to doubt if this was reality. Panicking, he looked away and decided he needed to handle the situation carefully. Accepting he might really be a young monk in the Shaolin Temple, he apologized, explaining that his odd behavior was because he was extremely hungry. Hyun-mun, smiling, guessed he must be tired from training. Yet when Kang Hauk requested beans and mushrooms as alternative side dishes, Hyun-mun was taken aback, his disbelief growing over this peculiar request. Moments later, Kang Hyuk found himself idly playing with his pen, disbelieving that they were expected to study Buddhist scriptures right after breakfast and early morning training. He mused that even Buddha would find their rigorous schedule daunting, concluding that he must have entered the world of the novel. He pondered how he might return home, wondering if his exit would coincide with the story's conclusion. He reassured himself that the situation wasn't entirely bleak, given that Mu Jin, the character he seemed to have become, was the protagonist known for exceptional talent, and Shaolin was revered as a stronghold within the Orthodox Alliance. Suddenly, his ink spilled on his book, which surprised him. He noticed that if there was a problem, it would be that he thought he had been marked by others. But when he remembered what he had done, he believed the deed had already been done. And since things had come to this, he swore to win in the spar and get them to acknowledge his training methods. In the hallway, Hye-young was astonished as he asked Hyun-mun if he was certain. Hyun-mun chuckled and assured her that Mu Jin was indeed quite unique. Hye-young felt the need to apologize to Hyun-mun for Mu Jin's behavior. But Hyun-mun was more interested in her opinion of Mu Jin. He mentioned that after the 7 days he gave Mu Jin, they would have a friendly match to settle things. Hyun-mun praised this as a wise decision, emphasizing that, as practitioners of Buddhism, they couldn't punish a disciple just for acting out of line. Then Hyun-mun inquired if it was true that Mu Jin would be facing off against Mu Gung in this match. He explained that Mu Gung was considered one of the most skilled among the new disciples at the Shaolin Temple. Every year, hundreds of new disciples joined, but many dropped out due to the tough training. Only a fraction remained in the main temple, so it was rare for first-class disciples or elders to know the newcomers' names. Mu Gung was an exception, and he was going to teach Mu Jin a lesson. 7 days later, the showdown arrived. Hye-young reminded them that the agreed-upon time had passed, signaling that they were ready to begin. Beforehand, Yol had questioned what he was doing, and he had to explain that he was warming up. Yol prompted him to explain in martial arts terms, so he clarified that he was performing a tendon extension technique. This preparation was essential to prevent muscle and tendon injuries during the upcoming exertion. He then asked Yol if he wanted to give it a try out of curiosity, and he said yes. Yol spread his legs in different directions, making the others wonder what you were doing and why you were assuming such strange postures. Yol asked if you just needed to position your legs like that, to which Mu Jin said yes and told Yol that you were doing really well, making Mu Jin wonder if your quick understanding was due to your youth. Then they heard someone shouting about consecutive punches and to watch out, which made them look up and see Mu Gung punching the air with great power. The others were amazed and shouted that they could hear snapping sounds from Mu Gung's punches. However, Mu Jin were horrified, knowing that he would be in deep trouble if you got hit by them. He wondered how he were supposed to defeat Mu Gung with just 1 week of training and how he should beat him. Then Mu Jin got an idea. Back in the present, Mu Jin smiled, thinking that Mu Jin just needed to use it. Hye-young noticed that Mu Jin weren't making any excuses to escape training, and although he didn't listen to their instructions, he seemed to have trained on his own. Hye-young then remembered asking Mu Jin, who was facing the tree, what he was doing leaning against it. Mu Jin replied that he was practicing a method to subdue Mu Gung instantly, while Yol questioned why he kept rubbing against the tree as Hye-young watched him closely. Hye-young then looks at Mu Gung smiling, thinking that Mu Gung will easily teach Mu Jin a good lesson. Mu Gung smiled shyly because he saw Hye-young looking at him and apologized, explaining that he needed to climb the ladder by trampling on him. However, Mu Gung was confused when he saw him stretching and heard his bones cracking in the process. He then asked Hye-young if they could start immediately, making Hye-young annoyed that he was acting all tough and angering Mu Gung. When Hye-young heard it, he told them to step forward and they faced each other. Mu-gung promised to show the result of his 3 months of punching practice. But when Hye-young yelled for the spar to start, he suddenly charged at Mu-gung, catching him off guard. As Mu-gung prepared to strike, he wondered why his opponent was rushing in. Mu-gung swung, but Hye-young swiftly dodged, surprising everyone, including Hye-young herself. Then using his arms, Hye-young grabbed Mu-gung's legs, knowing he couldn't use his full martial arts skills on a kid without risking harm. He tackled Mu-gung down. The whole takedown took about a second. The adults were astonished, questioning if a senior student like Mu-gung couldn't handle such a move, while Mu-gung's friends were worried and couldn't believe he was down so quickly. Seeing Mu-gung's expression, they realized he was subdued. Mu-gung wondered what was going on and what Hye-young was doing to him. Once the other students recovered, they gave Mu-gung all sorts of advice. Even though they didn't know much about arm bars, Hye-young warned Mu-gung that resisting would break his arm, so he should surrender. Mu-gung's arm cracked, but the other students urged him to keep going, thinking Mu-jin wasn't well trained. Another crack sounded, and Mu-gung warned Hye-young that his arm would dislocate if he applied more pressure. He also cautioned that Mu-gung might get seriously hurt if something went wrong. But Mu-gung didn't give up. Then there was a loud crack as Mu-gung tried to move his arm. Despite hearing his name repeatedly, the pain became unbearable, and he cried out loudly. Everyone, including the second-tier disciples, was shocked by what they saw. Finally, he released Mu-gung's hand, admitting his mistake and apologizing. The senior disciples looked to Hye-young for guidance, who tried to comfort Mu-gung and questioned the necessity of pitting 2 children against each other, knowing full well that he had won. The chain punch, a technique using fists, elbows, and shoulders, is powerful and favored for close combat. Mu-gung was known for mastering it better than anyone else among the young monks, even impressing the second-tier disciples. However, that morning, Mu-gung's usually effective chain punch failed miserably against a strange young monk who employed unfamiliar techniques. Mu-gung was in agony, lamenting how unfair it was. When asked what he meant, Mu-gung explained that if the fight had been fair, he could have won. In pain, Mu-gung asserted he could triumph in a fair fight. His companion agreed, trying to comfort him, praising him as the best. Suddenly, someone acknowledged Mu-gung's argument, catching him off guard. The lower-ranked students then explained to him that it was customary to use Shaolin's martial arts when sparring within Shaolin, and by not following this rule, he made them question the logic behind it all. The older disciple, visibly nervous, asked why he didn't employ the chain punch. He responded that if he had used it, the fight would have dragged on needlessly, risking serious injury for both of them. He chose to focus on the core purpose of a duel, which is to defeat the opponent efficiently. He couldn't understand why the man was fixating on this issue. He admitted to making Mu-gung cry, but pointed out that he managed to defeat him without causing any physical harm. Yet the man insisted that it was unacceptable since he didn't use Shaolin's martial arts. The lower-ranked students were aware that their revered Shaolin's chain punch had been easily countered by some inexperienced newcomer and his unconventional technique. Reluctantly, they acknowledged that Mu-gung had lost, but they were unwilling to admit it openly. The man worried that if this continued, the younger disciples might lose faith in Shaolin's martial arts. Or even worse, they might leave. They turned to Hye-young, seeking guidance, but were surprised to see her smiling. They wondered what he was thinking. Hye-young then called him over, and he approached. He asked if it was true that he had subdued Mu-gung without causing harm, to which he confirmed. Hye-young then declared that he had upheld the true spirit of Shaolin and was the victor of the duel, leaving the other disciples stunned. He couldn't believe they were actually recognizing his win. But Hye-young explained that his technique prevailed because his opponent's skill level was inferior, and the ultimate goal of learning martial arts is to combat the wicked forces that also possess martial prowess. Hye-young then said he'd personally demonstrate the core of Shaolin's martial arts and the true strength of Shaolin, capable of defeating wicked demonic leaders. He instructed others to fetch a big rock, and soon 2 men struggled to place it on stage. The young students wondered if Hye-young would smash it with his fist. They couldn't believe they were witnessing Hye-young's martial arts firsthand. Hae-young approached the rock, telling them to pay attention as he would reveal the true might of the chain punch they were learning. Taking a deep breath, he focused and punched the rock. His strike shattered the rock easily. The students were amazed, wondering if they could do the same with hard training. Hae-young smiled proudly, realizing they grasped the essence of martial arts. He was stunned, realizing this was true martial arts, where one strike could break a mountain, one sword swing could defeat many foes, and one punch could demolish an enemy. Remembering Hae-young's emphasis on non-harmful victory, he questioned him. Hae-young stuttered, admitting he broke the boulder. Silence filled the hall as they observed the broken boulder. Later in the mansion, Hae-young's master, Sung, asked if Mu-jin defeated Mu-gung in one move. Hae-young confirmed, and Sung recognized Mu-jin's exceptional talent. Hae-young expressed concern that Mu-jin might exploit the chain punch's weaknesses, fearing he could be a spy for the unorthodox alliance or the demonic cult, which would be disastrous. While Mu-jin was angry and confused in class, unsure of what their teacher was talking about, Sung suggested that maybe Mu-jin wasn't a spy and didn't need to attract attention. Mu-jin wondered if he was using reverse psychology, but Sung assured him there was nothing to worry about since Mu-jin was still new. They'd keep an eye on him to see if he was just different or really a spy. Sung then remembered something and guessed that Mu-jin might come from a martial arts family, which surprised him. He thought it made sense because he doubted Mu-jin could have made up those strange exercises by himself. He suggested those exercises might be what Mu-jin learned from his family, and said a father has a big influence on a child. He guessed maybe Mu-jin was trying to show his father's teachings were better than Shaolin's, which had been around for centuries. Sung also mentioned that since Mu-jin defeated Mu-gung, he might become more arrogant, and they wondered what to do about him. Sung suggested leaving Mu-jin to Beobgang and mentioned Beobgang had volunteered to join the Arhat Hall instead of the disciple court, which they agreed was a good idea. As night fell, the second-class disciples finished their chores and prepared for bed, but one of them noticed something and got scared. He told his friends to go a different way, confusing them. They peeked and asked if he had seen a ghost. They were surprised to see it was Beobgang, known for being strict about rules. They wondered why he was there instead of at the training ground. They guessed he wanted to train more without taking a break and admired his determination. One of them jokingly remarked that they were well aware of how persistent Beobgang could be, so they should quit pretending it was news. Everyone chuckled in agreement, adding that Beobgang's nickname should be Rules Dog instead of Rules Fanatic. Another man chimed in cheerfully, suggesting that the Mad Dog of the Discipline Court title suited Beobgang perfectly. But when someone mentioned hearing that Beobgang would be in the Arhat Hall starting tomorrow, the cheerful man's laughter turned to horror. He stammered, asking if Beobgang wasn't confirmed for the discipline court, to which a friend replied with rumors that Beobgang might even become the next master there. This revelation left the man dismayed, contemplating the prospect of dealing with Beobgang's strictness again among the second-class disciples. Beobgang, who holds significant influence, has always enforced discipline at Shaolin, starting from when they were third-class disciples. Beobgang has strived to be an exemplary figure, believing it unfair to enforce rules without adhering to them himself. Despite enduring intense training, which has taken a toll on his knees, Beobgang sees the pain as part of mental conditioning. Beobgang views Mu-jin as a troublesome yet promising disciple of the Arhat Hall, vowing to instill the correct mindset in him. The following morning, adult disciples were surprised to find Beobgang among them, questioning his unexpected presence. Beobgang said he joined the Arhat Hall instead, teaming up with them going forward. Someone there was impressed by Beobgang's physique, likening him to a soldier. Glancing around, he saw adult disciples in shock on one side and confused younger ones on the other. He quickly grasped the situation, thinking the man in front was likely the second-class disciple disciplinarian, but he decided it wasn't his concern. Beobgang announced they'd start morning training, beginning with the horse stance. As he moved around, he pondered that to guide effectively, he must pinpoint the exact issue. He believed understanding both oneself and the opponent guarantees victory. Lost in thoughts about diagnosing problems for effective treatment, Biob Gang noticed someone doing the horse stance effortlessly, which made him pause. He observed the proper posture, legs spread wider than shoulders, straight back, buttocks pushed out, and toes forward. Curious, Biob Gang copied the stance, wondering if it was right. He noticed the person breathe in and out while rising, which he tried but felt no different. The pain persisted, making him suspect it was a ploy to avoid training. Just as he was about to reprimand, the person said he wasn't doing it correctly, puzzling Biob Gang. Asked what was wrong, the person didn't answer immediately, realizing he needed to start from scratch. He didn't get why Biob Gang copied him, but noticed Biob Gang's knees popping each time he bent them, indicating serious damage. As the trainer, he couldn't ignore this, then realizing Biob Gang was meant to be the disciplinarian there. He started thinking about whether it would be helpful to have Biob Gang as an ally. Realizing he had authority over Biob Gang, he saw an opportunity to make his life easier there by gaining his support. He advised Biob Gang that persisting with a bad knee could worsen the situation and asked if he could trust him to follow his instructions. Soon after, Biob Gang began stretching his leg, making a comment about his flexibility. Instead of calling it stretching, he referred to it as a tendon extension technique, explaining how it could help loosen the knee muscles and make movements smoother during exercise. Biob Gang acknowledged feeling the difference. He then instructed Biob Gang to perform the movement in 30-second intervals, clarifying that this constituted a set and he only needed to do it 3 times. After examining Biob Gang's knee and gently massaging it, he asked if it felt better. But Biob Gang winced in pain, indicating discomfort even with light pressure. Realizing the strain Biob Gang's previous training had put on his knees, he felt relieved and refreshed as the pain subsided. He informed Biob Gang they were on the 2nd round, but needed to restart. Encouraging Biob Gang to continue, he noticed the adult disciples observing them. When questioned by Hye Young about their interaction, another disciple responded that they weren't sure what was happening between Mujin and Biob Gang. Mujin mentions that when his knees hurt, he just has to endure it. Known as the Mad Dog, the other second-class disciples understand his obsessive nature. However, they notice he's being friendly and training with a new monk. Mujin tells the monk to rest for a bit, and then they'll repeat the exercise 15 more times. He explains that earlier he was doing air squats but shouldn't because his knees are worn out. Instead, he needs to bend his knees slightly to relieve the pressure. Mujin breaks it down. First, bend your knees slightly and descend slowly. Second, as you sit, focus on your glutes and thighs rather than your knees. Third, use the same muscles to ascend. When asked how his knees feel, Biob Gang says they feel fine. Mujin is pleased and suggests a short rest, noting the reduced pain. Next, Mujin says they'll work on the calves. He notes that people with fierce appearances are often kind to friendly individuals. Mujin compliments Biob Gang, who laughs, saying he's been there for 18 years. First-class disciples wonder if Mujin has gone mad, and Hye Young starts to pray due to his rising blood pressure. Ignoring them, they head for food, and Mujin reminds Biob Gang to follow his advice before training. It may seem like Biob Gang blindly follows orders, but he has decided to after experiencing the techniques himself. After personal training, stretching lessons, and a massage from a top-class trainer, he finds the techniques incredibly effective, reducing his knee pain and stretching his leg muscles. Biob Gang asks if these techniques are family-taught. Mujin, amused, plays along, saying it's a good misunderstanding. Biob Gang appreciates the techniques for his knees, but notes that for martial arts, the Shaolin way, 1,000 years old, is best. Mujin acknowledges this. Then Muyul asks if they're done, and Mujin confirms, telling Biob Gang they'll meet later. Biob Gang smiles as he watches him leave. Suddenly, Hye Young came up behind him and straddled him. Biob Gang apologized for this inappropriate behavior. Then Hye Young asked about Mujin and what Biob Gang thought of him. Biob Gang shares that, from his experience, Mujin doesn't come from a martial family, but rather a family of physicians. When asked why he thinks so, Biob Gang explains that his knees are torn from training, a fact he kept hidden to avoid showing weakness. None of the juniors who trained with him for 10 years noticed his knee issues, but Mujin identified the problem immediately and taught him movements that didn't hurt his knees. Ha-young concludes that Mujin's family must be physicians for a martial family and expresses concern about the training at Shaolin collapsing. Beobgang reassures him, saying Mujin will follow the right path and suggests building a close relationship with him to teach the Shaolin methods gradually. Hye-young agrees, but advises taking it slow, saying he's counting on Beobgang. Later during afternoon training, Mujin is annoyed about having to do Buddhism lessons after breakfast, blaming his young age for the food coma. As they head to their training, Hye-young announces that since they are good at the chain punch, it's time to move to the next step. He explains that combining internal and external energy is crucial for mastering martial arts and prepares them for their internal energy journey. He sends out 2 disciples to demonstrate. They sit in the lotus position and Mujin recognizes it, watching them focus on their breathing. Hye-young instructs them to take deep breaths, letting the air pass fully through their nose and throat until it reaches their energy cores. Mujin gets excited about finally learning the martial arts he's dreamed of, and the other students feel the same, motivated by new reasons to train hard and dreams of breaking boulders like Hye-young. However, Mujin finds the training strange, noting that it differs from the Shaolin methods described in novels, which teach chants for cultivation and concepts of yin and yang, or the 5 elements. He sighs, trusting there's a good reason for this difference. An hour has passed, and Mujin has been diligently following every instruction he's been given. Outwardly, he's just another student trying to blend in, but inside, he's a bundle of anticipation, longing to tap into the inner energy that he believes will grant him the power to split mountains and soar through the skies. His excitement stems from an awe-inspiring demonstration by Hye-young and his obsession with martial arts novels. Suddenly, Hye-young instructs everyone to open their eyes. She explains that the energy circulation technique they've just learned is a basic method to help them sense and accumulate this inner energy. It's something they should practice in their free time. Mujin feels a twinge of frustration. He's eager to jump straight to mastering powerful cultivation techniques, not just starting with basic breathing exercises. To harness inner energy, though, he first needs to learn to sense it. A fellow student hands him a book. Curious, Mujin asks what it is. The student explains it's filled with diagrams of human meridians. As some students comment on how different the meridians look from what they expected, Hye-young clarifies that they don't need to memorize the whole book. This piques Mujin's interest. He eagerly explains that meridians are channels through which energy flows in the body, and mastering them is crucial. Ha-young calls on a student to step forward and identify the meridians. While the student does this, Mujin delves into the book, determined to memorize it by the end of the day. That evening, he reflects on Hye-young's words about the importance of learning the meridians. He realizes this knowledge means he could start trying out some moves once he masters the energy circulation technique. As he walks, he encounters Beobgang. Curious, he asks what Beobgang is doing. Beobgang laughs, saying his knees hurt less thanks to Mujin's exercises, and he's now trying to train more. Annoyed, Mujin points out he can still hear Beobgang's joints creaking. He taught Beobgang those exercises to prevent knee pain and ensure proper recovery. Beobgang, unfazed, clicks his tongue and insists that iron only gets stronger the more it's hit, flexing to prove his point. Mujin, unimpressed, retorts that iron only becomes stronger if struck correctly. Reckless strikes will just break it, and the same principle applies to humans. Mujin invites Beobgang to take a seat. He then persuades Beobgang to get a massage, warning it might hurt a bit. As he presses, Beobgang winces in pain. Mujin assures him to speak up if it gets too painful. While massaging, Mujin reminisces about his time in the Special Forces. He recalls enduring constant pain and pushing through injuries during training. Despite his suffering, his mission demanded he cross a river, but he eventually fell and had to retire early, leaving him feeling defeated and lifeless. In a flashback, we see Mujin sitting on a park bench, staring at his reflection in a puddle on a rainy day, feeling a deep connection to the struggling Beobgang. Mujin advises that if one's body is injured, the pain is solely theirs to bear, and no one else will shoulder the responsibility. Realizing his words sounded lecturing, Beobgang gently pats his head, sharing that he doesn't know Mujin's past, but assures him that the Shaolin never abandon their disciples, injured or not. He smiles, affirming their unwavering support. Mu Jin is taken aback and smirks, acknowledging the truth in Biob Gang's words. They share a laugh, and Biob Gang declares that from tomorrow, Mu Jin should train in the Shaolin way, despite letting out a scream from the massage. After the massage, Biob Gang apologizes for taking Mu Jin's time and asks about his plans. Mu Jin replies that he's heading back to his room to practice a circulation technique he learned. Biob Gang is surprised, questioning why Mu Jin, as a physician, hasn't mastered this energy technique already. Realizing his story is unraveling, Mu Jin makes an excuse about personal issues at home. Biob Gang suggests they practice together, thinking it might help Mu Jin get a better sense of energy flow. Mu Jin, intrigued by this idea, agrees, calling it the smartest thing Biob Gang has ever said. They sit down to train, with Mu Jin feeling the air around Biob Gang change, sensing something new and different. He decides to take this chance to figure out what sets them apart. Soon he notices something he missed during his own training and wonders if this is what they were referring to. To his surprise, he starts seeing an orange glow around Biob Gang, realizing it must be energy. He focuses, exhaling all the negative energies from his body while inhaling deeply, absorbing the energy of nature until it reaches his core. Finally, he identifies the difference between himself and Biob Gang. He makes a strained face, admitting he failed to absorb the energy properly and imagines storing it instead. Suddenly, he feels a warmth in his abdomen and realizes he's felt the energy, though it's only the size of a grain of rice. Despite its small size, he can still sense it. He jokes about truffle chips having less than 1% truffle, which boosts his confidence. Biob Gang acknowledges that both Hye Young and Hyun Sung were right. Mu Jin is destined to become a pillar of the Shaolin. Mu Jin admits he has a rough understanding of sensing and storing energy now, and he's familiar with the breathing technique, though it feels cold. He opens his eyes to find it's already night, and Biob Gang laughs at him. Apologizing for the lateness, Mu Jin thanks Biob Gang for his guidance. Biob Gang, surprised at Mu Jin's progress, laughs, saying he'll easily learn the enlightenment technique next. Confused, Mu Jin thinks he needs to learn more about meridians first. Biob Gang reminds him that, as someone from a physician family, he should already know this. Mu Jin laughs, admitting he forgot his background, and Biob Gang jokes that it was a bad joke and tells him to go back. Mu Jin worries about the physician family detail, realizing he needs to memorize all the meridians in a day. The next morning, Hye Young asks everyone who can sense energy and has memorized the meridians to step forward. Mu Jin yawns, pleased that he finally memorized them all, and steps forward confidently. Two others join him immediately, catching him off guard. He wonders if it was easier than he thought, given the number of people stepping forward. Hye Young introduces the basics of the Shaolin cultivation technique, just as Biob Gang had mentioned the previous night. He assures the students that since it's just the basics, it won't take long, and he'll teach them at a steady pace. As he begins reciting from an enchantment table, the students are astonished that Mu Jin and the others memorized it all in just a day. Meanwhile, Mu Yul sits there, seemingly in a daze. As Mu Jin and the other students head back to their groups, Mu Yul asks Mu Jin how he managed to learn everything so quickly. Mu Jin started explaining everything to Mu Yul step by step, but Mu Yul just stared at him. Finally, Mu Jin asked, "You didn't understand anything, did you?" Mu Yul confidently responds, "Not a thing." Encouraging him, Mu Jin tells Mu Yul that he'll get the hang of it soon and advises him to focus on his breathing. Mu Yul chuckles and agrees. Meanwhile, Mu Jin continues to memorize the meridians and the basic cultivation technique perfectly. He notices that his energy seems to be filling up faster, even if only slightly, and he's thrilled to be learning things he's only read about in novels. It's an exhilarating experience, making him feel like a true protagonist. As Mu Jin's training progresses smoothly, Mu Yul interrupts, calling out to him. Mu Jin looks over and sees Mu Yul dragging someone along the ground by their leg, looking rather excited. Mu Jin, worried, wonders if Mu Yul has hurt someone. He asks Mu Yul what's going on, and Mu Yul assures him that the person isn't dead, introducing him as Mu Kyung, who had joined the temple before him. Curious, Mu Jin asks why Mu Yul is carrying Mu Kyung around. Mu Yul explains that he couldn't carry him on his back because he was scared. Mu Jin examines Mu Kyung and notices that while the dirt on him is obviously from being dragged, The bruises are from someone else's doing, likely from a beating, even spotting a footprint. Mu Yul confirms this observation. Mu Jin thinks hard, realizing Mu Kyung's name sounds familiar. He recalls seeing a tall, skinny, malnourished boy who resembled a scarecrow more than a human. As he tries to remember more, the familiarity of the name bothers him, but he eventually dismisses it as unimportant. Mu Yul then asks, puzzled, why someone would beat Mu Kyung up. He suggests there are probably many reasons, but he isn't sure. He tells Mu Yul he knows someone who would definitely know. Since Mu Kyung joined earlier than him, they need to find someone who joined even earlier, someone Mu Yul knows from sparring with Mu Jin. Mu Yul realizes who it is, and they approach Mu Gung, who asks what they need. Seeing Mu Yul carrying Mu Kyung, Mu Gung, confused, asks what happened. They stare at Mu Gung in silence. Mu Yul then drops Mu Kyung to the floor. Mu Kyung grunts, and his soul leaves his body. Mu Yul laughs, saying, oopsie. Both Mu Jin and Mu Gung are shocked, having just witnessed a murder. Later, Mu Gung confronts Mu Jin, asking why he would waste his training time on them. Mu Jin questions Mu Gung's attitude, saying that as their senior, an injured junior should be a priority. Mu Gung reminds him that he is his junior too. Mu Jin laughs, saying Mu Gung will be known as a senior who lost. Mu Gung retorts that he only lost because he let his guard down. Mu Jin taunts him, saying he was completely crushed. Mu Gung loses control and punches at Mu Jin, but Mu Jin ducks and tackles him, throwing him to the ground and locking him in a twister pose. Annoyed, Mu Gung complains about Mu Jin's strange techniques. Mu Jin laughs, saying the result would be the same even if they fought 100 times, as Mu Gung doesn't understand why he keeps losing. Mu Gung tries to escape, but can't. Mu Jin offers to explain why Mu Gung keeps losing if he explains why Mu Kyung is in such a state. Mu Jin releases him, and Mu Gung quickly backs away. Mu Jin realizes Mu Gung holds a grudge and is too prideful. Mu Gung asks if Mu Jin will really keep his word. Mu Jin agrees, asking why Mu Kyung was beaten up. Mu Gung explains that Mu Kyung got on the bad side of Mu Tai. Mu Jin asks who the person is, and Mu Gung explains that he is from the outer sect and the only son of an escort establishment. Mu Kyung's father works as a porter for the Seobul escort group. Monk Hye Moon had initially tried to recruit Mu Tai into the temple, but discovered Mu Kyung's talent instead, bringing both of them to the temple. The issue now is that Mu Tai feels threatened by Mu Kyung's talent and has started bullying him out of insecurity. Mu Jin finds it absurd since they are Shaolin disciples, but Mu Gung explains that it's complicated because Mu Kyung's father works for Mu Tai's family. Mu Jin, frustrated, points out that this behavior is unacceptable in Shaolin, where the teachings of Buddha should guide them. He tells Mu Gung, who has significant influence among the students, that he should intervene. Mu Gung explains that there are 3 bullies, and even fighting one would be difficult for him alone. Mu Jin points to Mu Yul, saying that Mu Yul considers Mu Gung the strongest among them. Mu Yul remains silent, lost in thought. Embarrassed, Mu Gung admits that might be true, but points out that Mu Tai's group doesn't take their training seriously. When Mu Jin asks about this, Mu Gung reminds him that they are outer sect disciples who still base their training on Shaolin martial arts. Mu Jin then wonders if Mu Tai was one of the 2 people who stepped forward with him, indicating he might have already completed the necessary training. As Mu Kyung starts to wake up, he looks around and sees the 3 of them, thinking they are angry at him. Frightened, he crawls backward, but they quickly assure him they are not there to hurt him. Mu Jin explains that he heard about his situation from Mu Gung and wonders how badly Mu Kyung was beaten to be this scared. Understanding the complications due to Mu Kyung's father's employment, Mu Jin contemplates how to help him. Realizing something, he asks Mu Kyung if he would listen to his advice. Mu Kyung, skeptical, asks if Mu Jin can really help. Mu Jin confidently replies that it's simple. Mu Kyung just needs to report those threatening him and his father to Ha Jung. Mu Kyung feels puzzled and asks Mu Jin if he's joking, insisting that there's no way his father will be let off. Mu Jin calmly explains that it's actually simple. If Mu Kyung joins the main hall, he'll move up from the outer sect. Outer sect disciples usually stay outside Shaolin, so not everyone makes it in. But then they understand Mu Jin's real goal. He points out that as outer sect disciples, they can't threaten a main Shaolin disciple or his father. He remembers Beobgang saying Shaolin never abandons a disciple. Reaching out his hand, he assures that Hai Yizhong and Shaolin won't let them do as they please, asking if Mu Kyung is willing to try. Mu Jin questions Mu Kyung's silence, asking if he's not confident in becoming a main disciple. Mu Kyung looks away awkwardly. Frustrated, Mu Jin asks if he plans to let his father keep working under a bully. He stresses that if Mu Kyung gives up, his father will have to continue working under Mute, asking if he's okay with that. This spurs Mu Kyung to grab his hand, declaring he'll give it a try. Mu Jin praises his decision and then mentions his second plan. They can't let the bullies have their way until Mu Kyung becomes a main disciple. They need to defeat Mute first. 3 days later, during their afternoon free time, some kids inform Mu Tai that Mu Kyung is here. Mu Tai acknowledges, reminding them he threatened to send a letter to Mu Kyung's family if he didn't show up. His underlings, Mu Hui and Mu Huan, laugh, recalling their last beating of Mu Kyung 2 days ago. Mu Huan mentions Mu Kyung's new companions, Mu Jin and Mu Yul, along with Mu Gung. They wonder why Mu Gung is with them, speculating they might all show up today. Mu Huan sees this as a good opportunity, excited at the thought of having more targets to beat up. Mu Tai laughs, eager to beat up Mu Jin, with Mu Hui and Mu Huan agreeing they need to teach him a lesson for acting out of place. They chat about how Mu Gung acts as a role model and how he cried recently. Mu Jin then tells Mu Gung that people are calling him a goody two-shoes. Mu Gung laughs it off, amused by what people think of him. Just then, Mu Jin and the boys arrive. Mu Jin laughs, remarking that at least they aren't running away. Mu Hui and Mu Huan join in the laughter, questioning why they would need to flee. The Mu Jin laughs because they just called Mu Gung a brainless gorilla. Mu Gung vows to make sure they never say that again. Mu Huan steps forward, asking if Mu Gung is trying to scare them. Mu Jin declares he will handle Mu Hui and instructs Mu Kyung to deal with Mai himself. He reminds Mu Kyung to remember his training, assuring him that if he does, he has nothing to worry about. Mu Hui walks forward, expressing envy that Mu Kyung is making friends. They begin taunting Mu Gung and Mu Jin. Mu Jin faces Mu Hui, daring him to hit him. Mu Tai walks over to Mu Kyung and asks him if he wanted to hit him. Terrified, Mu Kyung raises his hands, saying Mu Tai is too scary. Mu Tai warns him that hitting him would have dire consequences for his father. Mu Kyung hesitates, recalling his father, but also remembering Mu Jin's teachings. Determined, he closes his eyes, starts to cry, and punches forward, telling them not to pick on his father. Mu Tai dodges the punch and goes for an opening, questioning if Mu Kyung is crazy. Scene changes to Mu Gung catching Mu Huan's fist, commenting that it's not bad for a gorilla. Mu Huan realizes he can't pull his fist back and acknowledges Mu Gung's strength, noting a change in Mu Gung's aura and seeing his eyes shine. Before this, Mu Gung had questioned why he should get involved. Mu Jin had told him a junior needed help and asked if he was too scared to step in. Mu Gung denied any fear. Mu Jin reminded him that since he agreed to help, they should continue their conversation. Mu Gung quickly asked what he meant, and Mu Jin reminded him he had promised to explain why Mu Gung lost. Mu Jin explained that while the chain punch is fast, that's its only strength, and then took a stance, suggesting that Mu Gung would understand if he experienced it firsthand, planning to attack him with the chain punch and wanting Mu Gung to try and avoid it. Mu Gung looks a bit nervous, but quickly dodges the punch. Mu Jin says that's good, but now he'll use a second technique and tells Mu Gung to try dodging it too. Mu Jin pulls his fist back, and Mu Gung thinks he just needs to dodge it normally, but it's a trick. Mu Jin goes for a low kick instead. Mu Gung rolls around on the floor, asking why he lied. Mu Jin explains that knowing your opponent's move is crucial. If the opponent knows what's coming, they shouldn't get hit. He says Mu Gung needs to deceive his opponents for his attacks to work. He admits that Mu Gung's punches are fast and powerful, but he telegraphs them too much with his posture. Mu Gung argues that he just needs to be so fast that the enemy can't dodge. Mu Jin agrees, but points out that's only true if you're the strongest in the world. He mentions the protagonist from another story, the Unorthodox Tyrant Chronicles, whose blade techniques were so fast they couldn't be dodged. Mu Jin sighs, saying that unless Mu Gung is the strongest, he needs to deceive his opponents and use psychological tactics, like saying he'll use paper and rock, paper, scissors. Scene changes to Mugung bending Mu Huan's hand, and he screams from the pain. Mugung taunts him, asking if that's all he's got, and warns him about his next attack so he can avoid it. Flashbacks show Mugung admitting to Mu Taijin that he thought using feints was cowardly, but now he wonders why. He sighs and agrees with Mu Jin, deciding to give him some advice too. He warns Mu Jin not to underestimate Mu Tai and his underlings just because of their fight. Mu Jin scoffs, reminding Mugung that he said he was stronger than them, yet he already lost to Mu Jin. Mugung clarifies that he wasn't fighting at full strength. If it had been a real fight, not just sparring, he would have used his family's martial arts and the inner energy he has accumulated. They trail him to a secluded corner where he declares this spot is good enough. Mu Jin questions why they were brought here just to witness his martial arts. Meng explains he doesn't want to upset the elders by using his family's techniques. Mu Jin assigns Mu Yul to keep watch, and Mugung grins, promising they'll be surprised. He thinks that now Mu Jin might finally respect him. He releases some of his aura, then delivers a punch so powerful it creates ripples through the air, his fist glowing with a green aura. Mu Jin, taken aback, notes that this punch is different from his usual chain punch. It has both power and speed, comparable to a high school boxer. Although not as strong as he expected, given Mugung's age, he is practically a prodigy. Each kick and punch snaps through the air, showcasing why Mugung said it would be dangerous for him. If he fought Mu Tai and his followers, they'd all unleash their martial arts against him. Meng stops his fist just short of Mu Jin's face, asking what he thinks of his full power. Mu Jin acknowledges it's impressive and understands why people consider Mugung the strongest among them. However, he can see that Mugung can't fully control his inner energy. If that's all he's got, Mu Jin believes he can still take him on. Mu Jin takes a stance against Mu Hui, who says that if Mu Jin won't move, he'll come to him. After seeing Mugung, Mu Jin realizes Mu Hui's punch using inner energy is no match. Compared to Mugung, it's amateurish. Mu Jin easily dodges and comments that their martial arts, the chain punch, are predictable. Mu Hui, surprised by the dodge, steps back, realizing Mu Jin's victory over Mugung wasn't a fluke. Mu Jin quickly closes in with boxing footwork and channels his inner energy, using the Dempsey roll to avoid Mu Hui's wild swings. Mu Hui guards his face, and Mu Jin praises him for it. Then he lands a punch straight to Mu Hui's stomach, causing him great pain. Despite this, Mu Hui doesn't fall. Instead, he prepares to strike again. But Mu Jin swiftly sweeps his legs, making him fall face first to the ground. When he glances over, Mu Hui spots Mu Jin gearing up for a punch. With a swift motion, Mu Hui slams his fist into the ground, just inches from Mu Jin's face, sending a clear warning. Shocked, Mu Jin begins to cry and scream, catching Mu Hui off guard. Puzzled, Mu Hui asks why he's crying. Mu Jin retorts with the classic, "I'm going to tell my father." This makes Mu Hui scratch his head and sigh, feeling like the bad guy even though they were the ones bullying Mu Kyung. Then Mu Hui remembers the others and sees Mu Huan pinned under Mugung. Realizing his worries were for nothing, Mu Hui turns his attention to Mu Kyung, curious about the fight. The sound of a beating draws his eyes to Mu Kyung, who is sitting atop Mu Tai, leaving him bloodied. Alarmed, Mu Hui shouts for Mu Kyung to stop, telling him that he's already won. As he calls out, memories start flooding back. He recognizes Mu Kyung, recalling that he'd seen his name many times before. Judging by the brutal beating and Mu Kyung's expression, he realizes it must be him. A chill runs down his spine as he remembers The Return of the Demon Supreme, a novel from his youth featuring the most deranged character, the Blood Monk. Mu Kyung, known as the Blood Monk, was a villain who reveled in bloodshed. Mu Hui recalls how the novel left an impression on him, even though he had forgotten most of it over the years. There was an illustration of the memorable character who believed humans were inherently evil and used blood to cleanse their sins, earning his grim nickname. The scene unfolding before him mirrors the madness of Mu Kyung from the novel. He realizes that he has awakened something terrifying. He only wanted to boost his self-confidence, but now Mu Kyung's entire demeanor has transformed. More importantly, if he doesn't intervene, Mu Tai might die. Desperately, he yells for Mu Yul to help. Mu Yul rushes over and together they pull Mu Kyung off. They finally manage to calm him down, but his fists still tremble as he glares at Mu-tae. Mu-jin is puzzled. Why was Mu-kyung bullied if he's so strong? Then he notices Mu-kyung's tears start to flow freely. Mu-jin thinks to himself that Mu-kyung isn't the blood monk yet. He recalls that the blood monk was known for his madness, but no one ever mentioned how he became that way. He wonders if relentless bullying drove him to this point. Suddenly, Beobgang appears around the corner and shouts, realizing they are in serious trouble. He demands an explanation from Mu-jin and insists Mu-gung also speak up since he's involved. When no one responds, he angrily repeats his demand. Mu-jin, growing irritated, grabs Mu-kyung and tells Beobgang to look at his body. Seeing Mu-kyung's back, Beobgang was shocked. Mu-kyung's back is revealed, covered in bruises. Beobgang asks what happened. Mu-jin explains that Mu-kyung's fellow monks have been bullying him for 2 months, and they had called him here to beat him again. That's why he stepped in to help. Beobgang, furious, asks Mu-hui and Mu-hwan if this is true and warns them not to lie. Other students, hearing the commotion, run over and see the scene. Students crying on the floor, Mu-tae beaten, and misunderstand the situation, thinking Beobgang is at fault. Beobgang then turns to Mu-kyung, asking him to explain. Struggling, Mu-kyung tries to speak, and Mu-jin comforts him, assuring him that Beobgang is fair and just, so he shouldn't be afraid. Mu-kyung breaks down, falls to his hands and knees, and confirms what Mu-jin said. He explains through his tears that he's been bullied for the past 2 months. Though emotional and unclear, he conveys the main points to Beobgang. Mu-jin reminds Beobgang that Shaolin monks never abandon their own, and as a disciple, Mu-kyung deserves protection. Beobgang counters, saying the other students are also disciples. Angrily, Mu-jin asks if Shaolin condones such behavior, threatening and bullying a fellow monk. The two face each other in a tense standoff. That's all for today. Thank you for watching till the end. Help me get to a 1,000 subscriber by hitting the subscribe button. See you in the next video. Till then, bye.